Hello, Rick. Hello, Randy. How is connection, audio, video? Hello, Maria. Can I be heard? Can I be seen? Is the connection good? No response, huh? Hello, Soma. Uh, no, Rick, I didn't. I saw no response. I see you responding now, though. You know, this is something I've experienced from YouTube's end. A lot of times in the morning, when doing morning monastery experience, like I'll not see any responses because which is weird because most everybody like Gregory and Gautam and Bella and John, uh that they all will say hello, good morning, and when they don't, I'm like, okay, something's off. Something is definitely off. And this is what it seems like right now. It seems like something is off, especially if there's confirmation that I'm not seeing chats. YouTube also deletes comments on videos randomly. Well, that's great. Well, I see at least enough response that we're going to get started. So we can at least get started and we'll see how it goes. Yeah, Rick, I saw the happy winter solstice. And then the next thing I saw was, did you get my response? So that's all I've seen from you. All right, let's do our chanting. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Aneka jati sangsarang sandhavisang nibbisang kahakarakang gave santo dukkha jati punapunang gahakaraka dittosi punagehang nakahasi sabbate pasuka bhagga gahakutang bisankitang bisankara gatang chittang tanhanang kayang ajjaga. Yatha have patubhavanti dhamma atapino jayato brahmanassa atassa kanka vapayanti sabba yato pajanati sahetu dhammang. Yadha have patubhavanti dhamma atapino jayato brahmanassa atassa kanka vapayanti sabba yato kayang pachayang avedi. Yadahave patu bhavanti dhamma atapino jayato brahmanassa vidupayang titati marana senung suryo va obhaseyang antalikanti. All right, English. For many a birth I wandered in samsara, seeking but not finding the builder of this house. Sorrowful it is to be born again and again. O house builder, thou art seen. Thou shalt build no house again. All thy rafters are broken, thy ridgepole is shattered. My mind has attained the unconditioned. Achieved is the end of craving. All doubts vanish. As phenomena grow clear to the Brahmin, ardent absorbed, his doubts all vanish when he discerns what has a cause. As phenomena grow clear to the Brahmin, ardent absorbed, his doubts all vanish when he penetrates the end of conditions. As phenomena grow clear to the Brahmin, ardent absorbed, he stands routing the troops of Mara like the sun that illumines the sky. Yeah, it looks like my channel, maybe it's just YouTube, but I have noticed some issues with getting chats. I don't know if there's anything I can really do about that. But anyway, friends, well, it is Monday night. That means it's time for Dhammapalooza, the festival of Dhamma with the Magaseka community, which is, as always, community led. Although I have been thinking, since the community's been small and quiet, I might start making Dhammapalooza more scripted. We'll see. I don't know. I'm ideas are coming into my head. But for now, it is community guided. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. If you have any topics you'd like me to discuss, you can put those in the chat. If you have any topics you'd like the community to discuss, you can put that in the chat. And if nobody has anything, well, there's always a sutta in the back pocket. Yeah, if somebody's posting something and you don't see me respond to it, it might be worth copying and sending the post again. maybe the second time it'll go through. I don't know. Sure. Bante, I feel led to focus my practice on contentment during the coming year. Do you have any guidance on ways to cultivate contentment? So, what is contentment? Contentment is a being at peace with what you are experiencing. That doesn't necessarily mean that you don't think it's bad or, you know, or good or whatever. You might have, certain thoughts or expectations of why, maybe you should or shouldn't be experiencing it or whatever. But contentment is developing the ability to not fight what is happening right then and there. You are experiencing it. And this is not an easy thing to develop. True contentment comes with wisdom in the practice. So you should one of the important things to reflect on when contentment is to really pay attention to when you are not content and why. Observe that discontent and observe what it does to you. Most likely what you're going to see is it causes you suffering. You might see other things too. But this is the idea. Discontentment, especially a willingness to foster and increase it, is simply you creating your own suffering. It's one thing to recognize, like you have an object of meditation. I feel discontentment. Discontentment has arising. And it's another thing to feed that. Yeah, I'm discontent. That's because such and such person or such and such people or such and such this or that or whatever. And you're just fostering it and growing it and building it. And all that does is lead to more suffering. So knowing what discontentment is and why you're experiencing it. And then recognizing when, the few times you actually have contentment in the mind. And then after that, it's setting the groundwork and, setting the causes and conditions for contentment to arise. Contentment isn't always an unalloyed good. Because even in the suttas, the Buddha warns the monks of the contentment of being in jhanas, or the contentment of reaching some high attained states, but they haven't reached the end yet. Buddha's like, don't get content with that. Don't stop. Keep going. Right. So there is contentment, and what it's for and how it's used, is situational in that regard. But everybody could do with at least 20 or 30% more contentment in their lives. that would do away with a lot of anxiety and suffering for sure. All right. Let's read a sutta. Longer simile on me. The longer simile of the heartwood. Sara. Mahasaropama Sutta. So I have heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Rajagaha on Vulture's Peak Mountain. Hey, I was there. Only about 3 weeks ago, I was there on top of Vulture Peak Mountain. Not long after Devadatta had left. There, the Buddha spoke to the mendicants about Devadatta. Mendicants, take the case of a gentleman who has gone forth out of faith from the lay life to homelessness, thinking, I'm swamped by rebirth, old age, and death, by sorrow, lamentation, pain, sadness, and distress. I'm swamped by suffering, mired in suffering. Hopefully, I can find an end to this entire mass of suffering. When they've gone forth, they generate possessions, honor, and popularity. They're happy with that, and they got all they wished for. And they glorify themselves and put others down because of that. I'm the one with possessions, honor, and popularity. These other mendicants are obscure and insignificant. And so they become indulgent and fall into negligence on account of those possessions, honor, and popularity. And being negligent, they live in suffering. Suppose there was a person in need of heartwood. Sara is excellent, heartwood, most excellent, the best. That's what Sara is. The Buddha is saying somebody who's in need of the best, but they keep going after the stupid parts. They keep going after the worst. So suppose there was a person in need of heartwood, and while wandering in search of heartwood, he'd come across a large tree standing with heartwood. But passing over the heartwood, softwood bark, and shoots, he'd cut off the branches and leaves and depart imagining they were heartwood. If a person with clear eyes saw him, they'd say, this gentleman doesn't know what heartwood, softwood bark, shoots, or branches and leaves are. That's why he passes them over, cuts off the branches and leaves, and departs imagining they were heartwood. Whatever he needs to make from heartwood, he won't succeed. This is called a mendicant who has grabbed the branches and leaves of the spiritual life and stopped short with that. Next, take a gentleman who has gone forth out of faith from lay life to homelessness. When they've gone forth, they generate possessions, honor, and popularity. Oh boy. They're not happy with that and haven't got all they wished for. This is a monk. Like they've gone forth. They don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of that. Nor do they become indulgent, fall into negligence on account of those possessions, honor, and popularity. Being diligent, they achieve accomplishment in ethics. They're happy with that, and they've got all they wished for. And they glorify themselves and put others down on account of that. I'm the one who's ethical of good character. These other mendicants are unethical of bad character. And so they become indulgent and fall into negligence regarding their accomplishment in ethics. And being negligent, they live in suffering. Suppose there was a person in need of heartwood. And while wandering in search of heartwood, he'd come across a large tree standing with heartwood. But passing over the heartwood, the softwood, and the bark, he'd cut off the shoots and depart, imagining they were heartwood. If a person with clear eyes saw him, they'd say, "This gentleman doesn't know what heartwood, softwood, bark, shoots, or branches or leaves are." That's why he passed them over, cut off the shoots, and departed, imagining they were heartwood. Whatever he needs to make from heartwood, he won't succeed. Next, take a gentleman who has gone forth out of faith from lay life to homelessness. When they've gone forth, they generate possessions, honor, and popularity. Being diligent, they achieve accomplishments in immersion. They're happy with that. They've got all they wished for. And they glorify themselves and put others down on account of that. I'm the one with immersion and unified mind. These other mendicants lack immersion. They have straying minds. This ekagata, often translated as one-pointed, right? Unified, one-pointed, collected, a mind that is immersed in the object. And so they become indulgent and fall into negligence regarding that accomplishment and immersion. And being negligent, they live in suffering. Suppose there was a person in need of heartwood, and while wandering in search of heartwood, he'd come across a large tree standing with heartwood. But passing over the heartwood and softwood, he'd cut off the bark and depart, imagining that it was heartwood. If a person with clear eyes saw him, they'd say, "This gentleman doesn't know what heartwood, softwood, bark, shoots, or branches and leaves are. That's why he passes them over, cut off the bark, and departed, imagining it was heartwood. Whatever he needs to make from heartwood, he won't succeed." This is called the mendicant who has grabbed the bark of the spiritual life and stopped short with that. Next, take a gentleman who has gone forth out of faith from lay life to homelessness. When they've gone forth, they generate possessions, honor, and popularity. Being diligent, they achieve knowledge and vision. They're happy with that, and they've got all they wished for. And they glorify themselves and put others down on account of that. I'm the one who meditates knowing and seeing. These other mendicants meditate without knowing and seeing. And so they become indulgent and fall into negligence regarding that knowledge and vision. And being negligent, they live in suffering. Suppose there was a person in need of heartwood, and while wandering in search of heartwood, he'd come across a large tree standing with heartwood. But passing over the heartwood, he'd cut out the softwood and depart, imagining it was heartwood. If a person with clear eyes saw him, they'd say, "This gentleman doesn't know what heartwood, softwood, bark, shoots, or branches and leaves are. That's why he passes them over, cuts out the softwood, and departed, imagining it was heartwood. Whatever he needs to make from heartwood, he won't succeed." Hello, Jay. Again, if anybody is typing something and you don't see me comment on it, I might not be getting it. So definitely feel free to post it again if you think that I might have missed it. Probably going to have to make that a regular thing to do for the foreseeable future with how YouTube is. Next, take a gentleman who has gone forth out of faith from the lay life to homelessness, thinking, "I'm swamped by rebirth, old age, and death, by sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. I'm swamped by suffering, mired in suffering. Hopefully, I can find an end to this entire mass of suffering." When they've gone forth, they generate possessions, honor, and popularity. They're not happy with that and haven't got all they wished for. They don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of that. Nor do they become indulgent and fall into negligence on account of those possessions, honor, and popularity. Being diligent, they achieve accomplishment in ethics. They're happy with that, but they haven't got all they wished for. They don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of that. Nor do they become indulgent and fall into negligence regarding that accomplishment and ethics. Being diligent, they achieve accomplishment and immersion. They're happy with that, but they haven't got all they wished for. They don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of that. Nor do they become indulgent and fall into negligence regarding that accomplishment and immersion. Being diligent, they achieve knowledge and vision. They're happy with that, but they haven't got all they wished for. They don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of that, nor do they become indulgent and fall into negligence regarding the knowledge and vision. Being diligent, they achieve irreversible freedom. And it's impossible for that mendicant to fall away from that irreversible freedom. Let's see, vimutti, that's freedom. It doesn't break it down, so I guess it's just one word. It means permanent freedom. This word is as opposed to ceto vimutti. When we're talking about release of mind, when you see freedom of mind, that's talking about metta, that's talking about jhanas, etc. That's not awakening. This is awakening. Asamaya vimuttiya, right? This is permanent, irreversible freedom. I like irreversible. I think that's a good word. Suppose there was a person in need of heartwood, and while wandering in search of heartwood, he'd come across a large tree standing with heartwood. He'd cut out just the heartwood and depart, knowing it was heartwood. And so, I guess I probably should explain. The heartwood is the part of the tree where you make lumber out of, right? Like it's like the strong, it's the part of the tree for building and creating. Right? It is the best wood. It is the heartwood. So the idea is you're seeking the best, but you're getting lost in the weeds. You're too ignorant, you're too deluded to actually know what is heartwood. This is why in the Dhammapada the Buddha says, that a regular person sees the unessential in the essential and the essential in the unessential. Meaning they don't know what the heck they're doing. That's what wisdom, you develop wisdom and you start to understand the essential in the essential. The essential is the heartwood, not the branches and the bark, etc. Suppose there was a person in need of heartwood, and while wandering in search of heartwood, he'd come across a large tree standing with heartwood. He'd cut out just the heartwood and depart knowing it was heartwood. If a person with clear eyes saw him, they say, this gentleman knows what heartwood, softwood, bark, shoots, and branches and leaves are. That's why he cut out just the heartwood and departed knowing it was heartwood. Whatever he needs to make from heartwood, he will succeed. It's impossible for that mendicant to fall away from that irreversible freedom. And so, mendicants, the spiritual life is not lived for the sake of possessions, honor, and popularity, or for accomplishment in ethics, or for accomplishment in immersion, or for knowledge and vision. Rather, the goal, heartwood. The Buddha is saying here, the only reason to live the holy life, the only reason to become a monastic is to become fully awakened. Right? If your goal is less than that, if you're looking for superior ethics or superior jhana or superior whatever, then you don't know what the heartwood is. Right? This is a warning to monastics. This should be your goal. The spiritual life is not lived for the sake of possessions, honor, popularity, or for accomplishments in ethics, immersion, and knowledge and vision. Rather, the goal, heartwood, and final end of the spiritual life is the unshakable freedom of heart. There it is. Akupa, unshakable, ceto vimutti. That is what the Buddha said. Satisfied, the mendicants approved of what the Buddha said. Sadhu. Very good. Any comments, questions? I was just looking at what next Monday is. I actually probably won't be on Dhammapalooza next Monday. This might be the last one for the year. So why don't we do like a, oh, does the Buddha talk about following a calling as in talked about in Christianity? Not really. I mean, I guess the closest to that would be the, the young man of a good family who leaves a small or large fortune, leaves a small or large family circle, etc., and goes forth into homelessness. Like that's the closest to like a calling, because like in Christianity, the calling is like God calling you, like literally, like that's when you become a priest. It's like you're called to God. um, Anything that would be a calling in Buddhism would essentially just be karma. Like you practice lots of Dhamma in past lives, and then in this life, you created the causes and conditions to become a monastic. Are you called to monasticism? Not in the Christian way. There's no, Buddha is not calling you to monasticism. Your karma has led you to get to that point. So in that regard, I wouldn't say it's the same thing. The Buddha doesn't talk about anything related to that other than what I already mentioned. Soma asks, what do you think is the reason there are less enlightened beings in the modern day? Are there? Or at least less than there were during the Buddhist time? Maybe. Who knows? Um, you know, it's not like I suppose when there was a Sammasambuddha, and during Suttas Monday on the Discord, our Sunday, reading that we've been reading through the suttas for 8 years, every Sunday, and we're in the Samyutta Nikaya going through these sections where, Ananda keeps asking the Buddha, such and such person died, and what was their, what was their attainment, what was their end after death, and the Buddha's like, Ananda, if you asked me about this for everybody who had died, I'd be quite vexed. I'd be quite exhausted. Right? So, you know, there's a misconception that just being born at the time of a Buddha kind of gives you like a fast track to awakening. That's wrong. That's absolutely wrong. Your practice over many lifetimes gave you the karma to be born in the time of a Buddha. And you became awakened. If you haven't become awakened by the ending of a previous Buddha's dispensation, and you've practiced a lot under that previous Buddha, maybe you're born, one of your births is when the next Buddha's around. And that kind of is like the coup de grace, right? Like the final, the final ability to become awakened. So the idea is that, the majority of the Buddhist world thinks that we're in a Dharma ending age, and the Dharma is so corrupted now that people can't become awakened. And I don't believe that. Obviously, the Dhamma is not as pure as it was when the Buddha was alive. I mean, it's just natural consequence, anicca, that over time it will become more diluted. That's just normal. But I think people think 2,600 years is a long time, but it's not. You read the sutta, it's like 2,600 years is a blink of an eye in so many contexts. It's like nothing in Buddhist cosmology. Buddha was not around that long ago. I think that people overestimate the amount of corruption over only a couple thousand years. So that would be the reason why people would say there's less arahants. It's because, the Dhamma is corrupted. The difference is, though, monks can't tell people their attainments. We don't know how many awakened beings there are in the world. Can't even guess. Who knows? I would hazard a guess to say that most of the supposed awakened beings are probably not. You see that a lot in the Thai forest tradition. Everybody and their mother thinks they're teachers and awakened, and it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, maybe, but probably not. It's a little bit much, but even still, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really impact your practice, the number of awakened beings in this life. Who knows? Who knows if I'll even ever come across one? Maybe I have already. I wouldn't know. I'm not awakened. Only an awakened being can understand another awakened being. But it's not really something worth worrying about, to be honest with you. The Dhamma is here. The Dhamma can be practiced, so practice. Eventually, you will become one of the awakened ones. Bhante, in your experience, how do groups of practitioners compare to this sutta? People where I live are very much not looking for Heartwood. You have to have a certain level of wisdom and insight to understand what the Heartwood is. Most people are not going to have that. I don't know that I have it. I've been doing this thing 20 years. I mean, I the way I guess for myself, what I see is like it's kind of somewhere in that general direction. I can't pinpoint it just yet, but it's somewhere in this general direction. So I'm just gonna start going that way. Um, you know, it it's normal. Like that's not a surprise that the majority of lay and monastics, just people, would not know what Heartwood is. Yeah, that's just what happens when you're not when you are lacking in wisdom and insight. It's 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 important not to compare yourself too heavily to the awakened ones in the suttas, because then you kind of will get disheartened, like, oh, I nobody who can ever be like them in this modern day and age. you know, there are people who can be. You could be. Maybe not in this life. Maybe in a future life. Who knows? But you can be. Just takes time and practice. Time and practice. I believe at least one guy got enlightened, so that's worth continuing the practice. I assume you mean the Buddha. So yeah, exactly. That's good. No, there are awakened beings out there. I believe that. I don't know how many. I don't think there's many. Like if I really had to guess, I would say there's probably less than 20 in the world. I wouldn't say there's more than 20. But that's kind of just like a intuitive estimated guess. I mean, like, who the heck knows? I have no. I mean, there could be thousands. I don't know. Um, but I just definitely don't think there's as many as there are supposedly reputed to be, because I think people are want their teacher to be awakened, so they'll latch on to stories. Oh yes, he was definitely awakened. I'm like, I don't know about that. Possibly, but I wouldn't. There's some cognitive biases, that lead somebody to kind of want to have a teacher who's awakened. And it's because they don't understand that having a teacher who's awakened is not going to make them have some kind of shortcut to awakening. That is not how it works. It's just not. But they think that, like, it's the same thing with I will be reborn in the uh, what the heck you call it, the Pure Lands, and there I will attain awakening. Possible, but it's like you're kind of expecting you're kind of expecting some kind of cheat sheet, some kind of, you know, like some shortcut, and there's just aren't any. There aren't any. There are certainly many highly advanced practitioners who are maybe stream mentors. Oh, I think there are thousands of stream mentors. There's no doubt about it. And not even just monastics, lay people. There are many stream mentors, no doubt, for sure. I mean, yeah, that's a big accomplishment, but on the other hand, it's not like you're not awakened. So I think there are thousands of monastic and lay stream mentors in the world. I do believe that. Non-returners and once returners, non-returners. I don't know. I couldn't even guess. Jay says, I've noticed that as we learn and practice, we develop Dhamma vision or glasses where we can see what's Dhamma and not Dhamma. Then we just need to keep following that, making sure to lessen ignorance. Yeah, just keep following that, and ignorance will lessen on its own. Just keep following that. Yeah. In the suttas, the Buddha says, just like the taste of seawater has only one taste, the taste of salt, so does the Dhamma only have one taste, the taste of freedom. Let's read some Dhammapada, then maybe we'll call it a night in 1 hour. Violence. All tremble at violence. All fear death. Putting oneself in the place of another, one should not kill, nor cause another to kill. All tremble at violence. Life is dear to all. Putting oneself in the place of another, one should not kill or cause another to kill. One who, while seeing himself seeking happiness, oppresses with violence other beings who also desire happiness, will not attain happiness hereafter. One who, while himself seeking happiness, does not oppress with violence other beings who also desire happiness, will find happiness hereafter. Speak not harshly to anyone, for those thus spoken to might retort. Indeed, angry speech hurts, and retaliation may overtake you. If, like a broken gong, you silence yourself, you have approached Nibbana, for vindictiveness is no longer in you. Just as a cowherd drives the cattle to pasture with a staff, so do old age and death drive the life force of beings. When the fool commits evil deeds, he does not realize their nature. The witless man is tormented by his own deeds, like one burnt by fire. He who inflicts violence on those who are unarmed and offends those who are inoffensive will soon come upon one of these 10 states. Sharp pain or disaster, bodily injury, serious illness or derangement of mind, trouble from the government or grave charges, loss of relatives or loss of wealth, or houses destroyed by ravaging fire. Upon dissolution of the body, that ignorant man is born in hell. Neither going about naked, nor matted locks, nor filth, nor fasting, nor lying on the ground, nor smearing oneself with ashes and dust, nor sitting on the heels can purify a mortal who has not overcome doubt. Even though he be well attired, yet if he is poised, calm, controlled, and established in the holy life, having set aside violence towards all beings, he truly is a holy man, a renunciate, a monk. Only rarely is there a man in this world who, restrained by modesty, avoids reproach, as a thoroughbred horse avoids the whip. Like a thoroughbred horse touched by the whip, be strenuous, be filled with spiritual yearning, by faith and moral purity, by effort and meditation, by investigation of the truth, by being rich in knowledge and virtue, and by being mindful, destroy this unlimited suffering. Irrigators regulate the waters, fletchers straighten arrow shafts, carpenters shape wood, and the good control themselves. Oh, well, my condolences, Jay. I lost my mother about 6 months ago. That can be a tough thing. Jay, I don't know that I can help you. Um, I can help you from my past experiences, but I don't know that I can help you with my mother experience. When you lose, when you lose a loved one, I don't know. Is this your first experience of losing someone close to you? I mean, obviously, unless you have a really bad relationship with your mother is going to be the person you're probably closest to. I mean, you know, you literally grew in her body for 9 months. So like that's a closeness that you can't really get that close to anybody else. Um, yeah, it's your first. You know, my biggest suggestion is to really take as much as you can, learn as much as you can from that experience. Don't try to repress anything or force or think I should be doing this or I should be doing that or I should be at that point of the grieving process or anything like that. Don't don't try to force yourself into anything. Allow yourself to go through the process and observe it. Right? Learn from it as much as you can. If it's a tough time, it's a tough time. How many hundreds of suttas the Buddha talks about this? The loss of dear ones is suffering. That's how it goes. It's a tough time. It's not easy. But you move on and you live on and you have to find a way to kind of adjust, adapt, and like your mind and your feelings and your thoughts all kind of mold itself eventually over time into the new reality, and the new reality is that person is no longer there. That person is gone. They are not in your day-to-day life anymore, and so you go through this whole process of, oh, yeah, they're not going to be here for this. They're not going to be here for that. And oh, look, it's Christmas. First Christmas without them. Oh, look, it's, whatever holiday, whatever normal thing that you're used to them being there, they're not there. And so there's a cognitive dissonance in the mind. And so eventually over time, the mind, when it's allowed to and guided through this process, it will come out the end of it. And okay, yes, it's sad that this person is gone, but this is, you know, normal life. Um, and I have so much gratitude that they were in my life and let me live as a better person for them. I mean, that's a kind of very skillful thing. Like, I'm long, long since feeling any sadness over the death of my wife. It's 20 years ago now. Um, but still, what's still with me this to this day is gratitude, because I wouldn't be the person I am today if I didn't go through that experience and be with that person. Like I've lost a lot of people in my life, and the what's left after a time is gratitude. And it's weird. I don't know, like I feel weird even saying this, because for the average person, they can't fathom this. But my mother's been dead 6 months, and I can't recall one thought of loss or sadness. I've surprised myself, to be honest with you. Like there has not been one, because again, I've been through enough loss before. I know what the process is, and it just hasn't happened. I have not had 1 ounce of suffering from the death of my mother. That's what the practice does for you. Again, it's not that I don't have gratitude. This woman, I was an Italian mama's boy. Like, yeah, like, I have had a much closer relationship to my mother than my father, who's alive now. He's downstairs. I love my father and all that, but we just never had a really close connection. Um, so it's not even that I hated my mother or anything like that. No, I was very close to my mother my whole life. But years ago, I kind of let her go. Like I kind of reached a point where I let go of that connection. And now that she's gone, there's no suffering. Obviously I wish her well, and I hope that, she's in the heaven realm. She's Catholic, so she was hoping for heaven. So hopefully she has a nice heaven realm, and she can, eventually attain nibbana or whatever. But her time on this planet is gone. It is what it is. Maybe it's because I've seen so much younger people die. Like, first of all, she was in her 70s. There was a heck of a lot more suffering for her and my father if she lived another 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. It would be way worse. So in all honesty, for me, she had good there's like good karma or whatever. The Catholics would say by the grace of God or whatever. It was much better for everybody that she went when she did. It could have been way worse. Um, so it is what it is. So this is why I say, like, I can't really, I can't say like, oh yeah, I know what it's like to lose a mother. It's because it's like I mean, I do, but this is new ground for me. I mean, I honestly was not expecting this. I was not expecting that I would not notice one mind moment of suffering from the loss of my mother. I don't know. That's all I can say. I don't know what else to say. This is what the practice does. And the average person will be like, "Oh, that's horrible. It makes you dehumanized. It makes you into a robot and blah 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 blah. You don't even suffer because your own mother died." They just don't understand the path. They just don't understand. They don't understand the freedom from suffering. And how could I explain it other than you have to do the path and follow it and experience it for yourself? It certainly was not anything I expected, that's for sure. But gratitude, if you do it right, your suffering and sadness turns to gratitude. That's my experience. If you do it right, that's what happens. And again, by doing it right, it doesn't mean like, oh, I have to follow this specific list. No, you have to let the process go out and really be with it and really observe it and let the mind process and think about it and kind of come to terms with everything and then move on. Like let them go, move forward. That's the part where a lot of people get trapped up. They won't move forward. They won't let go. Right? And that's not skillful. That's not good. You're holding on to the past to the point where there's nothing for you but suffering. It's not good. You have to eventually let go. Oh, hey Tyler. I like Ananda crying for the Buddha. Yeah. 5 frequent reflections help as the right effort. Bhante Gunaratana. Gunaratana said that when his mother died, his last strong connection died. Like basically, he was saying it was like he suffered when his mother died. He's like it was a tough thing, obviously. Um, Bhante Silananda, who's a Sri Lanka monk who I have lots of metta for, who most people don't know. He doesn't teach Westerners. He's not really out there. He was at Bhavana for 10 years, so he taught retreats and stuff there. But he tells the story of when I think he was in his late 20s. So we're talking about like 30 years ago. And his father died. And he had to do like a eulogy. And he said that he forgot that the Dhamma left him. Right. He was so kind of overcome with emotion and such, um, that he couldn't even like give a Dhamma talk. It's like that's understandable. It's of course it's understandable. Like I was expecting I would probably have a similar experience. Nope. I don't know. What are you gonna do? I'm still thinking. Maybe it will drop maybe in a year or two. Who knows? I don't know. Because I don't think I'm repressing anything. Because that's not my style. I've gone through this enough. But the practice really works. That's all I've got to say. The practice really works. All right. So I think we're good. I think we'll call it. Okay, friends. Well, Sukihotu, may you be happy and at ease. Practice well and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again, which probably won't be next weekend. I'm kind of doing a going to like an extended family meeting, all kind of cousins and stuff that I haven't seen. Well, my mom's funeral 6 months ago, I saw them, but now, this is what happens with funerals. You don't see somebody for like literally 15 years, and then all of a sudden it's like, let's get together again, let's do this, let's do that. So it's like a big like family get together on the 30th next Monday, up at my sister's place. So I'll probably be doing that. So no Dhammapalooza next weekend. But after that, I'll be in New York City with my Indonesian family for 2 months. I'll be with them in New York City. And hopefully, I won't be burned alive or any crazy stuff like happens in New York these days. But boy. Um, but so I will be with my Indonesian family in New York City for a couple of months, and we'll be doing Dhammapalooza and all the normal stuff then. So practice well and be well. Have a good holidays, New Year, and maybe we'll see you in a couple of weeks.